Alright y'all, here we are at the end of a series guaranteed to give you whiplash. The White House has been taken over, and did anyone else feel like this government overtake plan was ultimately just kinda there? Despite that though, Mike's still going hard for it. He and his old colleague are all buddy-buddy again in a way that's sort of hard for me to suspend my disbelief considering how close one of them was to treason. But I was wrong, Mike was right. Joseph is attempting to flee the country. Now that he's out of the way, the ninjas continue their attempt to take over the world because they believe they can bring peace to it. Like I said, that is about as ambitious as you can get, so it does make me wonder where they can even go in a potential season 2. Joseph tries to escape on a cattle plane and Mike rams it. And this one is a bit of a head scratcher because I do not know how he could catapult a plane like that. We get a chase scene and thereafter Mike lets us know he basically found Joe on a hunch. Guess all his years' experience paid off. Joseph desperately tries to blow up the power plant but fails thanks to Jason. And I think it's fortunate for him because I am not convinced he got far enough to escape that boom. So thank you, Jason. Your reward is 2 whole minutes of screen time. Joe makes a pretty sloppy confession to being the one responsible for Emma's death, but it leads us to one of the most cathartic moments in the whole series. Mike gets his revenge for Emma, and it's heavily implied he kills Joe too. And like, immediately I called Cap. Cap. Because Mike is probably the most moral character in this show. The suits are just still not hard, bro, I'm sorry. They had their final bout and it really had me giggling, and that is just not the response you want. And I'm not even trying to be a hater, it's that the stakes of the world just feel too dire for these action figures to be taken seriously. At least the music continues to be top tier. Even though I do feel like rock is a bit overdone, you know, it feels like an early 2000s AMV. What if we tried something like... He's bouncing off my booty cheeks, I love the way he rides. Zai turns up out of nowhere and reaffirms his commitment to the shinobi. Now that he's outnumbered, Joe attempts to use a secret art from inside the suit, and Yamaji responds in kind with his own. It turns into sort of like a life or death experience with some pretty disturbing imagery. I like that. It is a bummer seeing Joe in the state, but at the same time he was never that likable of a character, so I guess I just never really got attached to him. But fortunately for him, and again out of nowhere, Zai comes to his defense. Alright, I guess it wasn't totally out of nowhere, but it was a real quick change of heart. To me, it barely feels like a twist, and feels more like baiting. That's the thing, Ninja Kamui likes to take these twists and turns, but they don't always hit hard because sometimes they feel either random or just shoehorned in. I felt that way about the reveal that Emma was the one who saved Joe in the first episode. I don't know, I guess I just felt it was unnecessary. And I'm not sure how other mecha series go about this, but to me, if we can't see the characters, it ends up feeling sort of impersonal. So, in this unconscious state, Joe has a moment of meeting up with Mari in the afterlife, and she gives him some advice. It could be her ghost, but I'd assume this is more like a dream for him. It also feels like the most cliche route they could have taken, and they went for it. Like in any situation where Higan gets knocked unconscious, it feels like this power boost was bound to happen. Higan unlocks another secret technique, and this scene with Vengeance playing in the background is pretty impactful, I'd say. Looks like the budget went into the first few episodes and the climax. So on that end, mission accomplished, that was lit. Now, with Yamaji's dying breath, he decides to do some foreshadowing. He does so by implying there will be others to continue his legacy. Back to Mike, I was wholeheartedly thinking that he shot the ground next to Joe as like a warning, and maybe he did try that and missed, because Either way, this put a big smile on my face. Although you'd think Joe wouldn't just be lying there like a log after getting his ear blown off. Anyways, with that, it seems like pretty much everything's gone back to normal. Except we have to get through one more melodramatic moment with Zai. Joe reassures him that he's free from the ninja code because there aren't any ninjas anymore. Well, maybe not in this series considering the unprecedented bait and switch. And in the end, even they threw away the mechas, leaving Joe and Zai to rebuild their lives somewhere. This ending is sort of how I feel about the series as a whole. Open-ended. Will Joe get out of prison? Will Mike return to the detectives even though half of them are crooked? Where will Zai go? And Higan too. Does he have any practical skills for a job? It all feels open-ended in order to leave room for a season 2 if the demand is there. And I hope people enjoyed the series. It seems like it's rated alright. But I don't know. I think myself and maybe others were just kind of soured after the whole mecha thing started, because to me it felt like a breach of the audience's trust. And maybe that sounds over the top dramatic, but you know what? So is this series. And maybe I'm just simple-minded. I did feel like some of the morals were abstract and heady just for the sake of it. I feel that way about the characters too. Everyone claimed to be righteous except for, ironically enough, Joe, whose only major flaw was having no character at all. Often I felt like there were occasions that the series just felt this need to cram in conflict or plot twists that I don't think served it because they felt sort of flippant. Zai's change of heart in this episode being an example. And I think it's unfortunate too, since this series has so much potential. And you know, I don't feel like it's my place to give the showrunners advice, but I will say I feel like there are some general consensus from this season, so if Adult Swim does carry on to make a season 2, I would just say, listen to your audience. 6/10 for this episode, and honestly, 6/10 for this season.